today vlog, I thought I would quickly check in. It's Monday, so I thought I'd start off this vlog because we are going to finish some series. Now, mercifully, I have already started some of these because we don't actually have a full week because we are actually, today's Monday and the month finishes on Saturday. So I have 3 books which are from series I'd like to finish. Now this one's a bit of a cheat, just tiny bit, because this is stories set in the Daevabad world by S.A. Chakraborty, which is a Egyptian inspired fantasy in which we're following a girl named Nari who has powers that she shouldn't have, but she uses them to con people. However, during one of her cons, she accidentally summons a djinn who then takes her to the mythical city of Daevabad. This is essentially deleted scenes, short stories, continuations, and just other things that the author has written in regards to some of these characters, which I am very excited to be getting into. Last night I did manage to read 30 pages of this, so I am a little ways in, and it's very short, so hopefully I'll be able to get through this very quickly. Another one that I would like to read, another series that I'd like to conclude, is The League of Dragons by Naomi Novik, which is the last book in the Temeraire series. The Temeraire series being the Napoleonic Wars but with dragons, which we are following Captain Will Lawrence, who was in the British Navy but is now a dragon rider in the Dragon Corps once he bonded with the dragon Temeraire. And this is the concluding book. I've been reading this series throughout most of 2024. I started in March, and this is the last book. It's going to be very bittersweet. I'm very excited, but also kind of sad to be leaving these characters. And one that I am cautiously optimistic for is The Light of All That Falls by James Islington, or Islington. Please, for the love of God, someone tell me how I'm pronouncing this man's name. This is the concluding novel in the Lycania series, and I, again, very excited to be getting into this one, and I'm hoping to start this one today, and I'm thinking I'll read like a few of these each night, and then this is going to be my first read of the week. I can't wait to get into this, so I'm hoping that this will be what takes up most of my time. So for now, this is the vlog's plan. Once I've actually read something more than just 30 pages of short stories, hopefully I'll actually be able to give you some kind of update. Hey vlog, it's been a busy day, so a little bit of reading has been done, but nowhere near as much as I would like. But I am now on page 66 of A River of Silver, and that means that I have read, how many of these now? I've read 4 of the stories so far, so a decent enough ways in. I really like that the character perspectives that we're getting at the moment are ones that aren't really POV characters in the main series, and the characters that I do find really interesting. I'm about to go into a Yamshid chapter. I have had Maniza, Duria, Hatset, and Mutandir. And Mutandir is one of the characters that I really was fascinated by especially his arc throughout the original trilogy. So I am very excited to be getting his perspective in here, and I am interested to see more about him in general. So that was a good one. And then I'm gonna, I think, feel similarly about Yamshid. So overall, I'm glad that I'm reading these. They're not necessary, they don't really bring lots, but it's a series that I really like, so it's kind of scratching the itch of wanting to reread it. It's like, oh, I can just taste test, which is nice. And then I have started The Light of All That Falls, and I am on chapter 10, which puts me at page 154. And I am really enjoying this series now. There's not a huge amount that I can say, obviously, in this vlog, because it is the kind of series that does take its time to warm up, and by the time I was actually invested in it, everything I have to say will be a spoiler. But I am really enjoying this series, and I'm liking the perspectives that we're getting. I like the variety that we get now. I did find when we were basically only following Davian at the beginning of book 1 absolutely insufferable. I don't actually dislike reading Davian's perspectives anymore, but I have enjoyed the variety of characters. So for the most part, I'm enjoying my reads. They're not necessarily groundbreaking, but they are a fun time. Hey vlog, it's Wednesday, so it's time for me to check in again. I have been making some progress on my books. I am now 102 pages into the River of Silver, so I've read a couple more stories. I read from both Yamshid and Ali's perspectives. I actually quite liked the Ali perspective because I didn't know how I would feel about reading him depending on where he's at in the story, because he is someone that he's fascinating to read from in the David series, but he is someone who his life prior to the David series, I'm not sure how well I would relate to him due to some circumstances obviously I don't want to talk about because of the original series. But I did actually really enjoy his perspective, and Yamshid is always someone whose perspective I like reading, so that was a lovely time. So I'm looking forward to just kind of like working my way through this one throughout the week. I have also made a huge dent in All the Light That Falls over the course of the last day. So I read like 200 pages yesterday, and I think about 50 pages this morning. So I am now on page 400 essentially, and I am having such a good time with this. And there are things in here that I shouldn't like, but I think at this point I'm just kind of along for the ride, and I just almost decided to like it. That sounds weird, but it's like there are things in here that I knew from book one I wouldn't like of this series. So I'm just embracing the fact that they're there and being like, okay, I don't like this thing normally, but let's see how it's executed here. So it's almost like I have just made the conscious choice to like this series, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm plowing through it. I'm getting through it at a really, really good rate. I chatted with my parents a bit last night and then literally went upstairs and read, and it was lovely. And yeah, so now I am at the halfway point. So hopefully I'll have this done maybe by Thursday. That would be nice. And then I've got Friday and Saturday to get through League of Dragons. So yeah, so far so good. I obviously can't talk about this one very much, but there are certain things that are kind of coming to light in terms of the history of this world that I think is fascinating. I'm not 100% convinced on the way that they're going about revealing these things because it's not to my personal preference, but I do enjoy seeing the history of this world and the way certain things came to be. So I am enjoying it, and it explains an awful lot about just the way this society functions. And I think these reveals, some of them could have done with coming in earlier. Obviously with these books being absolute tomes and there already being so much going on, I understand why they weren't, but I think I would have maybe felt more immersed in the world if certain things had at least been alluded to or brought to the forefront entirely a little bit sooner in the series, because they're really fascinating. Good morning vlog. I am about to get on with my day, so I thought I would quickly check in. And yes, so this morning with my breakfast I did manage to read a bit more of the River of Silver, and I am now on page 132. I'm about to get a Nari chapter, which is going to be fun because Nari is the protagonist of the David series, so it'd be nice to get another chapter of hers. We did it very interestingly have a chapter from like a non-named character. It's just like listed as the Scout, and it's just, that was a very interesting short story to me because it was more like a scene, and it's clearly just something that the author couldn't weave in to the series, and I thought that was a fascinating one, which was always, it's always fun to just get like little extra bits from books or series that you love. It's kind of like when you get the extra chapters at the ends of books in special editions and things. It's kind of like, that's what that feels like. And then I have made another huge amount of progress with The Light of All That Falls, and that is that I am now on page 599. So I've read 190 pages, give or take, and I'm in the final stretch and things are happening, and I don't know which of my characters are going to make it out alive. I don't know. We've already had some things happen that this series isn't the most unexpected. It's not like, oh, I could never predict what is going on, but sometimes I struggle to predict how we get there. if that makes sense, which was absolutely fascinating. So I am excited to see how this last chunk ends, and I am going to go, as soon as I'm done working today, I'm going to go dive into this and really just finish up this series, because I am absolutely fascinated to see how I fall on the ending, because either it's going to stick the landing and I'm going to be like, yes, this series was great, or it's going to not stick the landing and then I'm going to be like, so I pushed through 2 extra books for this, because I would have DNF'd at book 1 realistically if I didn't own the other books, and if I hadn't had other people saying no, the first book is a struggle but it is worth it, I would have DNF'd at book 1. So continuing on through 2 other books and enjoying them, for it to not stick the landing will be absolutely devastating. So we'll see how I feel about it, but I am very excited. I have quite a bit of work to do today. I am doing some, I proofread translations essentially. So I have got quite a bit of that to do today, and then I would like to tidy up my house a little bit, and then after that it's reading time. Hey vlog, and happy Friday. It's nearly the weekend. Let's check in because I have finished a book. First of all, I am on page 164 now of A River of Silver, the last 2 perspectives that we had were Nari and Elite, which are our protagonists from the David Bird series. So that was really lovely to be getting their perspective again and to be reading from them. I mean, I've already had their POVs in the book before now, but just having them like back to back, and it's just, I don't know, they're such a cute couple as well, and the way I ship them, it's yeah. So as much as I really love this because I'm getting perspectives of other characters, it is also really nice to just return to characters that I know and love. So yeah, I'm having a lovely time reading this. I do find it interesting that out of all of the POVs that we have in this, of the main series, we have 3 POVs mainly, which are Ali, Dara, and Nari, but there's only 1 Dara POV in here. There's 2 stories that are Nari. I've only read 1 of them. There are 2 stories that are Ali, and I've read both of them. There's only 1 Dara one in here, which is fascinating because he seems like the kind of character you would have a lot on. So I don't know, but yes, love S.A. Chakraborty's writing style, so it's just so comforting to read. But of course, I have managed to finish the Lycania series. I concluded this yesterday. It did stick the landing. Like, it wasn't necessarily a landing that has completely changed my view on the whole series, that this is a new favourite, that this is the best thing I've ever read, but it was a good ending, and it did make me pushing through, well, not even pushing through, it made me picking up book 2 when I didn't know if I wanted to, worth my while, like psyching myself up and working myself into picking up that book and then enjoying it, and then really enjoying this one as well, and it's still sticking the landing, was amazing. So I've had a really good time working my way through this series, and I'm so glad that I pushed on past book 1. So if you read book 1 and there were elements that you did like, I think you found fascinating, but there were bits that you really struggled with, for me it was mostly the writing style. I found really not good. That, I'm not gonna lie, I did not like the writing style at all for book 1, and I am really glad that I pushed through. So while not necessarily the best series I've ever read or the best written, I think just me willing myself to enjoy books 2 and 3 and it actually coming to fruition was worth it for me. So yeah, good times all around so far with the reads. So I'm going to hopefully now go finish League of Dragons. I hope this vlog is interesting to you, because obviously there's very little that I can actually say. This is full of spoilers for the whole David Bad series. This is the last book in the Lycania series. I'm reading the last one of the Naomi Novik ones. So it's like, there's not much I can say. So it's just you seeing whether or not I find these series conclude well enough. Hey vlog, it is Saturday morning, so I thought I would check in and give you a quick update on where I'm at because I've been doing quite a bit of reading, and I have read another two stories or chapters or whatever in A River of Silver, which now puts me at page 192, so I will definitely be finishing this today. I'm gonna go probably read this after this update, and I should have just updated you now, but oh well. I'm really enjoying getting the side character perspectives that we're getting. I find it fascinating that we get two Montandir perspectives, stories in here, but only one Dara one. But I love reading Mutandir, so he's such a fascinating character to me, and I'm really glad that we're getting just a little bit more of him. The other character that we got was Zainab, but it's been so lovely to almost be refreshed on who these characters are, because obviously the longer you go without reading a series, certain elements fade. So you have some of these like background characters that like I know them, and as soon as I'm reading them in here, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you, and a load of scenes come back, but I wouldn't necessarily remember their names, or I wouldn't necessarily think about them very much. You think about the protagonists, the main characters, and your favorite characters. So it's been really nice to kind of be reminded of these other characters that I really did enjoy in the main series through these stories. More importantly though, I am now on part 3, so I've read parts 1 and 2 of The League of Dragons by Naomi Novik. This is the last book in the Temeraire series, a series I've been reading since March. It's a series that has taken over my life essentially, and we are in the throes of the Napoleonic Wars. It is a very climactic part, and it is very exciting. We have Napoleon invading Russia. If you know, you know. So we have a very fascinating avenue to go down, because we have the discussions around the morality of war, but also the way that there are no winners in war, and abstaining isn't always abstaining, and we have all of the discussions that I would want to be having within a military fantasy, all while we're following it through this lovely bond between Temeraire and Will. So I am fascinated to see how I feel about the ending. For me, one of the things that I think actually is a cause for frustration, but is a cause for real world frustration as well, and I think it's handled really well in here, is the discussions around the need to do things properly, and there being like an established chain of command and hierarchy that means that then a sensible person's sensible suggestion can be thwarted on the whim of someone who outranks them and things like that. And it's a fascinating approach in my opinion, because I think that it's discussed in a way that I enjoy, because it's how it works in the real world, and sometimes you do need people to go and push those boundaries a bit. Will, as a captain, is such a good leader because he is someone who is really firm and assertive, but he is also someone who is really kind and thoughtful. So having someone in this role where you need to potentially be brutal, especially in times of war, but at the same time someone who is really considerate. He's also someone who's really proper and who has never really had to question how the world works before Temeraire. So seeing all of that come to a head, and all of that build up of their discussions and their relationships actually coming into fruition in this one, is going to be really interesting. So I'm really excited to see how this last half of this last book goes for me. Hey vlog, so I've just done a few stretches that I need to do every now and then for my sciatica problems. So since I am down here, I'm gonna wrap up down here because the cold floor seems very appealing right now. But we have a wrap up. I finished A River of Silver. We have an alternate ending for Empire of Gold, and in here, which I read this morning. No, I read yesterday morning. Brain's fried. And I actually like the ending that we have for Empire of Gold. I think that she went with the right choice, but I did like this alternate ending. And we also get another Nari perspective, and yeah, like there isn't a huge amount I can say about this because it is just I enjoyed getting a little bit more of characters that I love, be it from the protagonists that really made me feel like I was coming home, made me feel like I was still reading books from the Daevabad series, could still come back to these characters, was lovely. And then getting more from the side character perspectives, because they're not characters that you normally get their perspective of, so it was really nice to get their POVs. The Light of All That Falls, fantastic ending to the Lycania series, really glad that I read it, ended up giving it a really high 4-star. And I'm looking forward to reading more by this author, because I know that everyone and their mother seems to love The Will of the Many, even people who didn't necessarily love Lycanius. So I am hoping that this author is just like on an uphill trajectory for their writing. League of Dragons by Naomi Novik, the final Temeraire book. Now, I don't know if this is just recency bias, if it is just I've just finished this series. It's a series I've had ongoing for ages. It's one that I've really come to love the characters, or if this was just an awesome ending. But I have ended up giving this 5 stars. I am so glad that we ended the way we did. I am so glad that we have the characters really honing all of the conversations and skills that they have acquired, all the knowledge that they have acquired over the whole series is really coming to the forefront in this installment. And I am so glad that it was all portrayed this way. I think I would have felt very differently about this series if it had ended poorly. We have had such an odd trajectory with this series. It's been an up and down sort of situation with some of the installments. So I'm really glad that it stuck the landing and it made getting through the duds, enjoying all of the awesome installments, it made everything worthwhile. It made having a 9-book series to work my way through worth my while. And I am really glad that I am in it for good. So I love Temeraire, I love Will, and I am sad that the series has ended in a way. I don't have another Temeraire book to pick up. That feels so weird. It's like a phantom limb. It's just like, oh, and every month I read a Temeraire book, and that's not the case. I'm taking the month off of reading any kind of read-along books in December. Obviously it's December now. I'm not reading any Cosmere, I'm not reading any Dark Tower, and obviously I have no more Temeraire left. And then in January I'll start back up at least a couple of them. But yeah, very weird not having a Temeraire book on the go. But that is it. That's it for this vlog. So I finished up some series. That does mean that I can kind of put these into my spreadsheet where I'm like ranking all of the series that I've read throughout the year. I have potentially only one more series to go, the December series, which is for next week's vlog, which is my Terry vlog. Yeah, we'll see where these fall on that. That video comes out in January, so I've still got plenty of time to film it. But yeah, that is it for this vlog of me finishing up some series. So let me know if you've read any of these series and your thoughts on them and on how they ended and on how you felt the series trajectory as a whole, especially Lycanius, because obviously it's one that I've had a very rocky start with but really loved. But also Temeraire, because again there are some duds in there, but I feel like maybe for different people different books will be duds, I don't know. So I'm very curious to see if you've read all of Temeraire, your thoughts on the series as a whole, as well as which installments were like your favourites and which ones were your least favourites. But that is it from me for today. So thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye!